What are you eating? What was I eating? What was I thinking? What was I doing with my daily life? I was definitely unhealthy on the inside.
Welcome to the Calorie Conundrum podcast with Coach Strick. Join us as we expand the weight loss conversation to beyond just calories and dare to ask the question, why does eating less and exercising more sometimes not produce the desired results? Here's Coach Strick to discuss this calorie conundrum.
Well, hello everyone, this is Coach Strick, and on today's podcast, I interview Sue Ingebretson. Sue is a much sought after symptom relief author, an expert in the fibromyalgia, chronic illness, and autoimmune communities. Known for getting to the root of health challenges, her methods deliver long-term results using a lighthearted approach without quick-fix remedies that only mask symptoms. She's an author, speaker, certified nutrition therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, master NLP practitioner, and an integrative nutrition health coach. She has additional certifications which include EFT, timeline therapy, and success coaching. She writes for various magazines as well as leading workshops and seminars. Her #1 Amazon chronic illness best-selling book, Fibromyalgia, details her personal healing journey. Her activity book, Chronic Coloring, features fun, informative, and creative stress management solutions. And her newest books, Get Back into Whack and Get Back into Whack workbook, detail the brain's role in healing chronic illness while laying out a plan to do so. Sue has been featured in First for Women's Magazine, TV, ABC Radio, and podcasts. She's active on a wide variety of social media platforms, and her blog with over 500 posts is found at rebuildingwellness.com. Let's hear Sue's inspiring chronic health story. Sue, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I just can't wait to dig in.
Sue, if you could you share a little bit about your history around health and where you came from and where you are right now?
Sure. I'd love to. I love to share that I was the most naive person on the planet, knew nothing about nutrition or health or anything. All I knew is that at my sickest, having figured out my own diagnosis, taking 15 years, I had fibromyalgia and an assortment of what I call an autoimmune cocktail, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And at my worst, I thought life was over. I was nearly 100% disabled. I walked with a cane. I was told, here's your paperwork to get your scooter chair. I saw almost 24 doctors, and I was on over a dozen medications. Not all of those every day, but a good handful every day. And I was told that was my life. That was it. That's all I could hope for. And I was told it was progressive. So it was going to get worse and worse and worse. And I am so grateful that none of that was true. None of it.
So how old were you again when that happened?
At my worst, I was in my early 40s. And I was sick really from 25 to 40, and was told that it would just get worse and worse, and that's all I could look forward to.
So with that kind of diagnosis, I could see where you might be at a point of giving in or giving up. So what kind of spurred you to investigate it for yourself or find people that could help you to kind of reverse these things instead of just, going with the diagnosis and just getting worse over time?
I love to share that there is nothing better than a really bad motivation. Doesn't matter, good or bad, but you've got to be nudged. You've got to be motivated. And that bad motivation for me was being given that paperwork for that scooter chair. And that nurse practitioner was so happy about it. And she said, just think, when you're a grandmother, you won't have to pick up your grandchildren. You can just set them in your lap in this chair. And I was mortified. I'm not saying she did anything wrong. That was what I needed to get the push. I was mortified. That is not what I want, and I am not stating that anyone who is in a scooter chair that that's what they want. I'm just stating for me, that was my push. And I literally shook my head, went, I don't want that. I don't want that. And I am a natural born researcher. I am stubborn. I'm stubborn. Midwest pastor's kid. So my father was an amazing researcher. I went home and said, there has to be a different way. If this is all I'm told in this direction, and that's all I believed in, I was raised to believe in Western medicine. And if this is what I'm told here, I have to figure out something else. So as I started to do research, the only thing that I found initially that talked about actually transforming or overcoming, the only thing I read about was nutrition. So that's where I started. That isn't the whole picture, but that is where I started. And that's where I started to find change. And again, it came from that point of stubbornness. So once I read that, I said, well, that's stupid. That doesn't work. I had a doctor to my face say, it doesn't matter what you eat. And I said, yes, I love that. So once I read that there were people who actually transformed their health, I did it to prove it wouldn't work. And of course it did. I transformed my entire life. That was the beginning. There were other things I did, but that nutritional shift, because I didn't have 1 ounce of nutrition in my body. When I made that shift, my entire life changed. And I am so grateful for being stubborn and stupid and naive.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great motivator.
Yeah, congratulations on that. And that takes some perseverance and some stick-to-itiveness to, see it all the way through. But I see that as one of the major issues with our healthcare system today is that doctors and the people in the positions to tell people what to do have a certain message that's beaten into their head since, day one of school to all the way through the training, is that this is the way we do things. And, these are the steps to accomplish that, whatever we're trying to do. And like the example that you gave, the nurse talking about you in the wheelchair, she's so used to doing that because so many people come through and that's the answer. That's their answer is you're in a wheelchair now or a scooter and this is going to be your life. And so she's trying to accommodate that type of person. And it doesn't even, the equation doesn't even have in it, hey, you might not have to use this scooter if you improve X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And so what else do you see kind of an issue with the current and past medical system, the one that you were initially in with all your different diagnoses?
The thing I'd like to share is that at the time, I truly believed that doctors had the answer or they knew what was wrong with me or they knew how to fix it and they just weren't sharing it with me. I don't know why I thought that, but I just felt like there was this secret. Like somebody has this secret and if I just keep digging, I'm going to have a brain tumor or I'm going to have, I was tested for MS and, all these things. And I was told by different doctors, you have MS. I was told I have lupus. I was told I had RA. I was told I had, I can't even think. A whole list of them.
Fibromyalgia?
Oh, well, no, that was the one I finally came up with. And the doctor's like, yeah, that makes sense. But before that, I was told all sorts of different diagnoses. And then I would see another doctor, a specialist, who'd say, no, you don't. So that went back and forth. And the best answer I got was actually much later after I'd written my first book, Fibromyalgia. And I was on a radio interview with a doctor in Australia. And I said, here's what I want. Why didn't I at least get a doctor to say, I just don't know? I would totally respect that. I would respect it. And I was on this interview and another panelist was an MD and he jumped in and he said, how dare you? And he said, when you go to medical school, you are drilled and grilled. You have to diagnose immediately. You are given whatever information you're given, and you must come up with a diagnosis. I don't know is not okay. It's not. And he put me in my place, and he was right that I thought that I don't know would have been helpful to me, and maybe it would have, but from his point of view, a doctor is not allowed to say, I don't know. So there's the problem, isn't it? If they can't say, I don't know, then they have to say that this or that is the problem. So I'd like to, I no longer am worried about what the Western medicine world is doing. I care about what I'm doing. I care about what my clients are doing. I care about what my readers are doing. And I care about sharing and sharing. And I've been doing this for almost 17 years. I care about sharing the information that the body is designed to heal. You give it just even the slightest amount of attention and affection in the areas that we're going to discuss today, and transformation is not only possible, it's probable.
Yeah, I love that. And what you mentioned there about the physician or MD, saying how they were trained and how they're expected to act in a situation, that kind of plays into what we were talking about, before we jumped on this call. And that was that people are afraid to talk about the cure. They're afraid to talk about, hey, you don't have to be in the scooter if maybe you did some other things potentially, and so can you talk about that? Like not only MDs being afraid to lose their license and whatnot, but the end consumer with the disease, like they're afraid to even discuss that. Why is that?
And I'm so glad you brought that up, and you used the C word, which we're not allowed to say. And I'm glad we're talking about cure, because I don't believe that cure is the right word. Transformation, recovery is my favorite word. And the body can recover. We can get back to where we were. We can get to even better than we were. I do have fibromyalgia, and I still have it. And I can do things that will bring back those symptoms like that. I just now know the difference, and I now recover faster. So if I do get ill, I rarely do, but if I have a challenge, my bounce back is so much faster because my immune system is kick butt. I have an awesome immune system, and I have an awesome recovery system. And I built that and developed it over time and over years. And I love that, because in the community, there is such a reticence to talk about recovery, because you don't want to set up expectations for other people that they may or may not achieve. But my thing is, you can feel better than you do today. I don't know what that trajectory is, and I don't know what it is for you. And I don't know what you're going to implement and not implement from what I share. I am not responsible for that, but I feel totally responsible for sharing what I know, sharing the information, and then it's up to you or the listener to take that information and run with it and do some things or not others. And that gets into the whole mindset work, which is now my greatest focus, is the mindset to actually implementing and making change, and why that's so important.
Yeah, so so you're reframe the word cure into something less scary, but why is it why would the people be scared of that? Like what is that about the C word that people are kind of iffy about?
Probably because everything that has to have a diagnosis has to have diagnostic criterion. And so if there's a cure, there would have to be diagnostic criterion in order to prove that. So since that doesn't exist, and technically this doesn't exist either for autoimmune, it's idiopathic, then you can't prove that. So therefore, you're just barking up not only the wrong tree, you're just barking.
Yeah. So tell us about some of your clients that you've worked with that, were at one point where, the people are telling them, here's your wheelchair or here's your cane. And then maybe, share us the story of kind of progressing from that or improving.
one of my first big success stories, just love her to pieces. This doesn't happen very often, but she's one of those clients that I started to share nutrition information first. It's always the stepping stone. And she just implemented anything I said. That's not typical.
Yeah.
She did whatever I said.
Yeah.
And she just started putting these things into practice. And she had recently been diagnosed with lupus. And as she went to the Mayo Clinic and other places for her check-ins, for her benchmark blood work, they were freaked out at her numbers changing. And they said, don't do the diet that this health coach person, author is sharing with you. Don't do that because you're messing with your medications. And even as a not all that aggressive client, she said, wait a minute, you're saying my numbers are so good that my medication is too much. Can we reduce the medication instead of the changes that I'm making or whatever? She had that dialogue, and she actually was shut down and got a different doctor and found one who was willing to discuss it with her. So I'm just so grateful that she had that wherewithal. Not all of us do. Not all of us have an opportunity to see different doctors. I completely understand that. But just the mindset was from the medical profession, that fear that it was messing with her. And I had another client tell me who had type 1 diabetes that don't do whatever it is you're doing, stop, because it's messing with your insulin. And I get that. We don't want to mess with numbers or whatever, and we want to work with a doctor. I totally understand all that. But we want to make sure that the wholeness of the body is the goal, not the artificial manipulation of this, that, or the other. We want to make sure that, and I'm all about root level. What are we doing healing from the root level out? That's where we want to be.
Yeah, a lot of people, they use medication as the cure. Like you'll tell someone, well, you can take this pill, or you can stop eating this way because your blood pressure's high or your cholesterol's high, and they're like, okay, I'll take the pill.
Right, and I get that. I took whatever was handed to me, and I totally understand that mindset. For me to say, if you had asked me, 20 years ago, would you be talking about nutrition? I would just laugh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah, it's such a powerful, tool that we have available to us, and not very many people know about it or utilize it to its full potential.
Yep.
So you've talked about chronic disease, and you talked about, how nutrition relates to that. What other things are related, like nutrition, that affect the health of someone?
The thing that I love to discuss most is how the body is compromised. There's a big difference. We can say stress. We can talk about stress all day long, but there's a big difference between stress and chronic stress. That's when this whole scale tips over into manifesting all these different symptoms. So the symptoms might be cognitive, dysfunction, confusion, word search, frustration, brain spinning. There's so many different ways that shows up. Digestive disturbances, we all are familiar with that. We're familiar with hormone out of wackiness. There are all sorts of things that happen once this stress tips from being situational to chronic. And that is, I would love to be able to work with students at 18 or 15, we're having chronic illness happen, in the teens, whereas it used to happen in 40s and 50s. So if we could get that addressed sooner, we could make such a huge shift. So looking at all of these things, we have a metabolism problem. We have, weight gain or inability to gain weight even. We have thyroid problem, we have adrenal problems. These stem and have their roots in this chronic stress issue. So my main focus, what I discuss the most, is this whole autonomic nervous system and how we're in overdrive. And that fight or flight is like driving with the gas pedal all the way down and the brake pedal at the same time. Sometimes the gas is a little bit more and we actually go a little bit forward, but we got the brake on. And sometimes the brake is all the way down, but we still have gas on, so we're still not stopping. We're still going a little bit. And just think of what that does to our car. That's what we're doing to our body every single day when we are under this chronic stress problem. And I have a great example of that if you
let's hear
it. I work a lot in the weight loss world, and I love that topic. I love helping people with weight loss concerns. That's what I call a gateway topic to come talk about the weight loss. And as we know, it's so much more than that. It's not just the nutrition. It's getting a handle on how we think and this entire autonomic nervous system response. So I have my own issues, up and down or whatever. I've typically been about the same for quite some time, but about 8 months ago, because of the situation we're in, I thought, what a perfect time to really get a grip on what I'm doing. And so I started tracking daily, measuring, weighing myself, which before that I was not even weighing myself once a year. So I was weighing myself daily and have for many months, maybe 8-9 months now, every day. And I found that, as we all know, the whole calories in, calories out is not true, does not work, is not the main thing. And what I found is that because I was able to be very regimented because of the world we're living in and not being able to go out and have a lot of fluctuation, I found that being able to monitor what I was consuming on a regular basis and keeping it more consistent. So it's not about calories. I was already eating well, so I'm eating good, wonderful macronutrients that are balanced. But I found that as I actually looked at it, I love data, that I was just jumping around too much. I was having too much one day, too little another, like I'm going to compensate somehow. But I found that when I got to that place where I was consuming the right amount for me, in the right balance for me, on a regular and consistent basis, my weight just started dropping. It was just shocking. I'd been trying to do that for a long time. So I found for me this consistent, number that not a number, but a balance that worked for me. But here's the interesting thing. On Labor Day weekend, I had a catastrophic fall, just silly. I was right here at my desk, got up to run and do something, and my foot didn't work. So I'm sure it was asleep, but I didn't know it, and I was in such a hurry that I ran. And I flopped it to one side. I got up. I actually scraped my hip and my shoulder and big bruise on my leg, and got up and it flopped the other side. And I actually ended up tearing ligaments on both sides of my foot and up my shin. So I did a major, major injury. But here's the interesting thing from being such a geek about data. As I'm measuring and weighing every day, I had a spike the following day. So I had this big injury. We're talking trauma. It was trauma. It was painful. My ankle went poof. It ended up turning every color of the rainbow. I'm still in a little brace. And the interesting thing, though, is my weight shot up 3 times the typical bump. And I didn't eat differently. I didn't do anything else different. What does that tell you? That tells you that there's so much more at play. Look, if you look at my charts, that spike says, hello, trauma, stress. It just has so much to do with what the body holds on to. I didn't have any more calories, if we're going to say it's about calories, which it's not. I didn't have any more calories that day than I did any other day. But look what stress did. So that's where I love to help people. And there's so many things we can do. But when we can get that switch to flip from chronic stress to situational to regular, and to get ourselves to deal with stress on a regular basis through so many different modalities, then we can get the body to let go. And then weight has an opportunity to let go. The metabolism will change. Your entire body structure will change. Your world will change because you come from a solution-based model when you're in a relaxed state, from a problem-based model in a stressed state. Boy, I know we covered a lot there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story, because that's one of I have all these little, lists in my head of how calories in, calories out doesn't work. And that's exactly one of them. If you get stung by a bee and you swell up 2 times your size, you're going to be heavier than you were just 5 minutes ago, but you didn't eat anything. And obviously that example of a bee sting or twisting your ankle and having some kind of trauma like that is an example of a severe acute chronic stress. Mm-hmm. But what are some other things other chronic stresses that cause the thyroid issues, that cause the metabolism issues, that cause the digestive issues? What are some of the stresses that are causing those things?
For the chronic illness community, again, it's once that switch has gone into chronic. So every day there is a looping mind that under stress will only focus on more stress. So every day the worries are, I'm getting sicker and sicker. I wonder what else is going to happen to me. So they have a list of symptoms that's this long and they're looking for more.
Yeah.
I know that's not what they think they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're saying, what else is going to happen to me?
Yeah.
And so they're looking at the world through this lens, which totally makes sense. I get it. But they're looking at the world through this very constricted lens of pain. Pain has an amazing way to help us in an acute situation to heal, but it is so limiting when it's day in and day out. So that pain signal regularly changes how the hormones work in the body. The hormones are the traffic signals of the whole body. The hormones tell the brain how to work. The hormones tell the brain and the heart and the gut, and it's all one system. And under acute stress, or not acute, under chronic stress, all of that is dysregulated. All of that changes. So we can address weight. I could get somebody on the best, cleanest diet there is and say, you're going to do this for 2 weeks, and they may have some shift or they may not. But if they are constantly beating themselves up in the mind, if they are constantly twirling on the financial issue that's going to crush them, or the relationship that is so overwhelming that they can't think, or the fear of a child that they're caring for, those things are like, it's a terrible analogy, but Pigpen's cloud,
Oh, yeah.
Those things surround him. We can't ignore it. We can't pretend it's not there. And until that is addressed, and again, people come for weight, and I love discussing weight. I love discussing cravings. I love discussing emotional eating. I love discussing methods to mitigate and change those things. That's one of my favorite topics. But we do have to get into starting from that place of calm, that place of okay, now I'm ready to listen.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the topic of the mind up, because to me, that's where everything starts. No matter if it's a chronic disease or vitality or whatever you want to talk about, it all starts in the mind. And that's actually where pain comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, there's things like phantom leg syndrome or phantom limb syndrome, where people have pain, but there's no arm there, or there's no leg, but there's pain that's coming from the brain. And so, like you said, the brain is a powerful thing. And so you have to kind of take control of that before you can move forward with the healing process. So what are some of the ways that you help people, address this issue of this cloud around them, that's this negative doom and gloom kind of situation? How do you work with clients on that?
I love that. I love going deep. So when I do work with my full program, it's a minimum of 6 months. And I do a survey, and the questions on this survey, and I have developed this over 17 years, asking all of the good, juicy questions. This survey alone may take a month or two just to get through the survey, just to ask them questions. And the interesting thing is, by the time I finish that survey, I have enough content, and I know how to circle things. I know how to color and highlight. This is a limiting belief. This is a issue that we need to address and correct and go back. I've mentioned I'm a master practitioner of NLP. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a clinical certified nutritional therapist, blah, blah, blah. And so I have so many tools in my tool belt: success coaching, EFT, all of this stuff. It's not the tools that I know, it's knowing what ones to use and how to use them to address the specific issues that are there. So I will work with clients, and there's a good example of one who told me right off the bat about a trip that she had made. And she's just facial cues. So she's telling me about this beautiful trip and this wonderful event that she had. And then I could see this cloud descend, and her body changed, her shoulders changed, her mouth changed. And then she told about how she ended up feeling at the end of this trip, and she made a direct connection to someone she doesn't like or respect or care for. And that fear was palpable, that she was afraid she was going to become that person because of how she felt. And it was so clear to me, but it was not the time to bring it up. So I write it all down. She thinks this equals this. And these are things that you can't tell people. You can't say, hey, you have a belief that blah, blah, blah. But I have all of those notes. So as it comes up, I can weave that into the conversation. I can use metaphors. I can use guided imagery. I can use so many different things and bring it up in a way that has them come to those solutions and go, I remember that now. I didn't realize that I thought I was going to become that, and I was angry at myself. I don't want to be that. I didn't want that. So that's the type of work that I do, but it's conversational. It is, sometimes I'm using a method, sometimes I'm not, but it is helping that person work through all of these things, and I check them off on my list, and I am just thrilled to be that guide to help them navigate that path so that they can come out and not only learn the tools that I'm giving them so that they can do them themselves, but they know the hot spots. They know what it is that makes them feel certain ways. And nutrition may or may not be part of it, depends on what the person comes to me with. But there are so many things, but the key is knowing when and how and where to use them. I have the most amazing toolbox, and it is hard earned over 17 years. And that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, it sounds like you have lots of tools to use. And I think what you're kind of highlighting or pointing out is that the people have to discover the issue for themselves, but you just have a lot of tools to help them discover that.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's really hard. It's kind of like a person that's lost in a forest, and you're kind of looking down from like a satellite or something. You can see the big picture, but it's kind of hard to see the picture when there's a bear crawling over in the woods over here, and there's snakes over here, and so it's helpful to have somebody say, "Hey, did you see that bear over there that was looking at you?"
Right.
And so that's definitely helpful. What else is holding people back from moving from one place to another?
What's interesting is, it's a great question. There's a big difference between what is actually holding them back and what they say is holding them back.
Yeah.
big difference. And I get it because I was there too. If I share this amazing view that is possible, clients may say they don't have the time. They may say they don't have the money, which I totally understand. They may say they don't have support from others, which I totally understand. They may say, I don't have a computer, or I don't have a phone, or whatever it is that they say is very valid, and it's often what comes to mind first. But usually the basis to that is a fundamental belief that they lack some really essential thing that will help them get what they want. Or they believe they have to give something up to get what they want. Mm. And so they either believe that they are intrinsically broken, defective, malfunctioning. And I write about that quite a bit in my book, Get Back into Whack, because it's so common. We all have this factor of feeling that we are different, that something that is wrong with us is different from everyone else. And so this brokenness has us believe that we really can't fix or change or alter or improve or transform. So there's that brokenness aspect. And then there's also that aspect that says, I believe that if I had to do that, if I was going to go for it, there's something really important that I would lose. Mm. And when we get into it, some people are afraid of losing their relationship. I had a client who said, I will work on anything with you but nutrition. And when it came down to it, she believed that the way she cooked is how she showed love for her husband. And if she changed how she cooked, she'd lose her husband. It was that clear to her. So again, that's what I can help people discover. What is it that they believe they're going to lose or will have to give up? And the big elephant in the room dealing with chronic illness people is disability. And I understand that for many people, disability income is crucial. It's life altering, and it's absolutely necessary. So talk about the foot on the gas and the foot on the brakes. They want to get rid of pain. Who wouldn't? They want to get better, but if they get better, they could lose their entire livelihood. So there are really challenging things. And I love this analogy of the trapeze, that when we want to go for it, when there's something that we want, we have to let go of where we are in order to grab on that next rung. We need to be able to let go, to grab. And it's a scary thing, which is why I am holding hands the whole way. But those are the two main factors that I see in making that change.
Yeah, it seems like those things would be pretty difficult to overcome because that's a lot of times for people, it's a lifetime of feeling they're not good enough or feeling like they're broken. And what are some specific tools that you use to overcome something like that?
It depends on what they come to me with. And again, I'm using visual cues, so I could tell by body language what it is for them. So they might be telling me something, they might be saying blah, 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 acting like it's not important, but their body language is going to tell me this is so heavy that I feel it's killing me. And their language too. People say things like that. This is killing me. Your body hears that. Be really careful what you say. So if it is very stressful and traumatic, I use some sort of somatic approach. That means a body approach. So it could be tapping. It could be a somatic focus where we're looking at a specific area of pain or frustration or anger, and then we're identifying it. We're really hyper-focusing on it so that they can give it a voice. That's a somatic approach, which is used for high stress and anxiety. I always call tapping talking people off the ledge tool. So a lot of times you need to start with that in order for them to even hear. And sometimes it can be as simple as metaphor. So language is so important. So I can just be stating a metaphor, or I can state a experience of a former client and put it in a way that I know that makes sense to them, and their brain is going to get it. I'm all about the non-conscious mind. So the non-conscious mind is on board. It's hearing it. It knows what's going on. So I may be doing a metaphor. I might do some sort of relaxation. So if it's really, stressful and traumatic, we may do an in-body relaxation technique, 5 minutes, where I'm getting them into their body, looking at something in the room, focusing on their feet on the floor, getting into the now, because that's the whole idea of stress, is that we're out there. We're in our head. We're in the world. We're not in our body when we're under stress. So it might be that. It might be language. It might be some pattern shift with NLP. And hypnosis is something I usually do more with full-time clients who want me to record something for them, and there's something really specific. I love going deep into something specific for them. It's a gift. It's something that they want, and I can wrap it up in a bow, and then they can have it to repeat. And it's something that is so powerful for them, because I know them enough to put all these things into this recording that are specifically designed just for them. So those are just some of them. There are many, many tools. And of course, how we eat, how we move, posture, there are just so many different things we can do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I hope people are hearing the difference, where when you're talking to Sue, she says, I love going deep. And you go to a regular physician and they say, we got 7 minutes. Your diagnosis is this, next person, here's your medication, get at it, kind of, and it's not that they don't want to help. It's a lot of times they don't have the tools. Like they don't know about going deep. They've been trained in diagnosing and treating disease. And that for a lot of people, like you said, they believe that is the answer.
Yeah.
But in reality, there's so many other factors that are in play that things like you're talking about are very important to help people move from point A to point B. And that's another reason why I urge people on this podcast to search out professionals that can help them through these type of situations, because it's almost, and a lot of times it's almost impossible to overcome some of these mental blocks and, nutrition blocks and all this other stuff on your own. I mean, you can do your own research, and I mean, that's how you said you kind of came out of this. But the amount of research that you have to do to really find the truth about things is crazy, because every day the amount of information you can access doubles or whatever, on the internet. And so it's kind of hard to find what's the truth, what's not. And so that's why I say that you should really, if you have an issue, if you're not feeling well and there's something wrong with you, you can search out people that can help you with that. There's always, you can always improve at least a little bit, whether it's through nutrition or through, mind work, working with the brain or whatever. But it's really hard to do that on your own. So thanks for sharing those two, that's the information that you just shared about different ways that you help people.
You bet.
So, Sue, my podcast is kind of geared towards weight loss, but as you stated before, and as I've said on the podcast, weight loss is a lot more than just, the weight loss. Your health and weight are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
And if you're healthy, your body's probably going to be at a healthy weight. And so, can you talk about how chronic disease is related to weight loss?
Definitely. And I do want to point out that for the majority of my life, I would have been viewed, I don't know that this is clinically true, I would have been viewed as at a healthy weight, and I was not healthy. So I had never eaten a vegetable in my life. and I thought I was just fine. So weight is just one indicator. But having, once chronic illness settled in, I found that I would gain weight, and it was a inflammation. It was an inflammatory response. And I had water weight. And it didn't make sense because I had no digestion. Everything just went right through me. I had terrible, terrible IBS, but yet still felt puffy and awful. And, so the digestion is the soul of your body saying, warning, warning, things are not working. Things are not right in your world. So once your digestion is compromised, you know that there is a problem. And there are people out there that say, I have a bowel movement regular like clockwork. Well, you have to ask, because some people say regular like clockwork is once a week. And what's your transit time?
First and the 15th, right?
That's right. And this is what, our colleagues love to talk about. We talk about bowel movements. We talk about transit time. We talk about what are we looking for as benchmarks to say, are we really healthy and what's going on? So it's not just what we eat, although that beautiful blend of macronutrients that we want to have healthy fats. Most people are so deficient in the healthy fats. We want to have the healthy proteins, and we want to have carbohydrates in the form of vegetables. That's it in a nutshell, with, great quality filtered clean water. Getting that tweaked is great, but the other factors are what is making them hold on to weight. So if we're talking about weight loss, I have a new program that I'm working on, and I've got a tip sheet. So thank you for reminding me of that. It's not out yet, and it's my top 10 tips for weight loss. And right now, it's coming out soon. If you hop onto my brain quiz, which would be rebuildingwellness.com/brain-quiz, QUIZ, then you could get information on my brain quiz, and then my weight loss tips and program will be announced there. I hope that's coming soon. But on this tip sheet, you would get many of the things that we're talking about today. That, the looking at real food, amazing. This dependence on artificial food, huge, big deal. And this whole brain, looking at the autonomic nervous system, looking at this overreaction of stress chronically. That's just a big factor, because it does affect the whole body. It's this trickle down thing. So when the autonomic nervous system is in overdrive, this whole fight or flight, we're stuck and freeze, then everything else is out of balance. Everything else. That's your metabolism, your ability to drop or hold, your ability to process, your ability to digest, your ability for the hormones to run the whole regulatory system, your thyroid, the adrenals, endocrine, everything, respiratory, everything is affected by what's going on up here, especially with that whole autonomic nervous system connection. And I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. So, I hope people go pick that up and get some more tips. What you started that whole spiel off with was the fact that when you had your chronic disease, you didn't have, you weren't overweight. And I think personally, I believe that the TOFI individual, the person that is thin on the outside, fat on the inside, is probably one of the most dangerous people in society, because they're the skinny person that's eating donuts, that's eating fast food, that's eating whatever they want, that's not working out, that's, not exercise, not moving their body, but not overweight. And so they're saying, well, if I can do it, I don't have to do any of that stuff. And so their health is declining without them really knowing it. And then you have the overweight people that see that and say, well, it's not fair. They can eat donuts and fast food and not exercise, and they aren't overweight. Why am I overweight? And it perpetuates a negative idea about weight loss, in that these people that are, naturally thin are perpetuating this whole unhealthy lifestyle just because they're not overweight,
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was naturally, well, yeah, I guess I was a small kid, but I'm a petite person. I'm 5 feet tall. But I ate Cheez-Its and Wheat Thins and drank Crystal Light. And that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
That's what I did. But I love you brought up this fat on the inside thing, because when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, this whole body pain, fibromyalgia, there was no name for it at the time. And when I was trying to figure out what that was, I read a study about somebody with fibromyalgia who was in her early 30s, had been in a car accident, and so they did an autopsy, and they said that her internal organs, she was a healthy weight, normal, that her internal organs looked like a woman of 80. And I said, see, that's how I feel. I feel like an 80-year-old person. And the only way I'm going to get a diagnosis is through an autopsy. That's what I believed at the time. And
Yeah.
then then they'll know how bad I feel. See, they're gonna know how they missed my diagnosis. I'm gonna have an autopsy. They're gonna see that my organs look like I'm 80. But now I get it. That 80-year-old interior is there due to all these other factors. What are you eating? What was I eating? What was I thinking? What was I doing with my daily life? I was definitely unhealthy on the inside. So it's not just this whole outside thing.
Yes. And you shared lots of great information today about chronic disease and everything. It sounds like you have a pretty good grasp on the research as well. Do you have any new juicy research information that you would like to share with us today?
Oh, let's see, new research.
You mentioned
I
something about the COVID.
It was actually the research is that me keeping my own data, that
Oh,
I
okay.
was tracking my own
Oh,
data.
yeah.
And I'm just, I love this quote that I heard, is that failure is one of the most data-rich experiences you can ever have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we would perceive as failure. So if you looked at my charts and looked at my weight every day, and at the beginning, my weight was going up and down quite a bit. And then as I really got dialed in, what I was consuming every day and just kind of making it a habit, then it was, my weight was going down. I was finally dropping. But then what I noticed is that the shifts were very small, 0.2 of a pound, up, down, up, down, up, down. But then that spike happened when I had the accident. And so you would call that failure, that I hurt myself or that I have an injury or whatever. And I didn't gain this much weight because my ankle was swollen. It wasn't the weight, the actual weight. It was what my body was doing with the stress and the trauma and everything. So there is just nothing like data. I love data. And so that's my thing. It doesn't have to be yours. But when I work with clients, we track all sorts of things. And that is something that can give you more information, because we are each so different.
Yeah.
We are each individuals. We're completely different. And what works for one person is not going to be the same for someone else. So you need to understand and just really celebrate your own tendencies. What does your body do with this type of nutrition? Is it keto? Is it real food? Is it, Mediterranean? What is it that your body needs? We're each different. So I think that's, one of the most valuable things that can come out of this, is that people feel like they're always reaching for the next, this is the perfect thing. Diets don't work.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle change. It has to be an inside out change. And it has to be, I believe that this can work for me. And it's so important to make this shift, or it's not about wanting it, but this is so important to me to build myself up, that this is what I'm doing. And it changes all the time. So what I started doing 17 years ago that was absolutely transformational, I don't do that anymore. It's changed, it's morphed, it's shifted. And that's okay. That's life. We're always changing. Doesn't mean that was wrong, but that's where I started.
Yeah. And like you were saying, it's really hard to get to where you want to go if you don't know where you're starting.
Yes, yes.
And in FDN, the training that I've been through, they have a slogan. It's test, don't guess.
Yes.
And so they run a lot of functional lab work to really get, dive deep into the person's body and figure out what exactly is going on. What is causing these symptoms? Like you were saying before about the root cause, like, what is causing the symptoms of digestive issues, headaches, pain, whatever. And we look for that and try to address that. And some of those are more physiological, but you're even talking about the mental aspect of it, of diving deep into how does the person think, and what's going on in their mind and stuff like that. And it's all important. But if you don't get the data points, then you don't know if you're improving or
Yes.
getting worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Sue. Well, if you have anything you would like to end with, you can add it now, or
I would just encourage people to reach out, and whether it's to either one of us or anyone else, you need to look. And when you do look, you will find someone who speaks your language, who resonates with you, who makes sense to you. Their words just feel right to you. And no one should go through this alone. We do need that hand holding. And here's the interesting thing. It may be a team. So you may work with this person and this person and this person, but you do have to start somewhere. And don't think that this is something that you're going to figure out by yourself. You can't read the label on the jar you're sitting in. We have to be able to get that outside exposure, not only for the education that they have and the information they have, but for the feedback and for the observation and the encouragement. We need that. We all need that. We all need an outside support system.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to, cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but
Nope.
This is exactly why professional athletes are able to go out and beat their bodies up week after week and come back and still play at their, highest levels, because they have a team. They have someone fixing healthy whole food for them. They have a massage therapist. They have the chiropractor. They have all these people that are working for them, so that when they can go out there, beat their body up, and then come back renewed, refreshed, and not get injured, and still perform at a high level. And so you got to kind of treat yourself like a professional athlete. You have to get in there. And if you're at the point where you're in a wheelchair, then obviously you're not going to be training like a professional athlete. But there are things you can be doing to improve your health that you have to have the mindset of a professional athlete, as far as like, this is the only body I have, they're thinking about if their body's not healthy, they're not going to get paid. And a lot of people is the same way, but it's getting paid in more than just money. It's getting paid in being able to pick your, grandson up or granddaughter up, not have to hold them in your lap and actually pick them up yourself and stuff like that. It's kind of intangible, or there's no money assigned to it, dollar sign assigned to that, but it's they're all very important things that, we'd all like to have. So,
yep.
So this has been a fantastic call, and I hope that people will benefit from it. And thanks for being on.
Me too. It's always my goal that the listeners find something of value. So I am so grateful for the opportunity. Thanks so much.
I hope you were inspired by Sue's story. I couldn't imagine what it must have felt like being told that she was destined for a life in a motorized scooter. If you are someone or know someone that is suffering and can't seem to get any better, I hope this episode gives you hope that you can improve. In this episode, Sue also mentioned creating a team of health allies to help you discover the root cause and rebuild your health. That is exactly why I created the WHAM Fam. The WHAM Fam stands for the Weight Loss and Muscle Building Family, and it is the free membership over at calorieconundrum.com. This membership gives you access to podcast transcripts, bonus interviews, free webinars, free health and fitness challenges, special discounts, and access to the free WHAM Fam Facebook group. I hope you will join our weight loss and muscle building family. Also, don't forget to take the quiz over at rebuildingwellness.com/brain-quiz to be notified of the weight loss tip sheet from Sue. And with that said, this is Coach Strick saying thanks for listening. And remember, when calories in, calories out doesn't work, that, my friend, is a calorie conundrum.
This podcast, including Coach Strick and guests, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects for the use of any information contained herein. Coach Strick and/or guests may recommend products or services in which they have a direct or indirect financial interest. To find out more, please visit www.calorieconundrum.com.